And welcome to the Township of Chatham Township Committee meeting for January 21st. Greg, has adequate notice been given?
Yes. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given both the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 8th, 2016. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 8th, 2016. And notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 8th, 2016.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Before we begin this evening, I want to welcome former committee woman Kathy Abbott to the mic. She's here with Girl Scout Troop 5732 to present the colors. As we all know, the Girl Scouts is a great civic organization, very much involved here in the Chatham community. In the past, we've had the Boy Scouts present the colors, and it's not only appropriate that the Girl Scouts come forward as well. So, Kathy, if you want to introduce the girls this evening and tell us a little bit about the project or the badge they're going for.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'll take this out. So we have 4th grade troop from Lafayette School. There are 7 of us, and we're here earning the Inside Government badge for juniors. I noticed that the Boy Scouts had brought the flag up in other meetings, and I thought that I've never seen the Girl Scouts, and I hope we're starting a trend. And also, obviously, the Girl Scouts are a civic organization that really is vital in terms of volunteer work for the Chatham community and all over New Jersey. And part of the things that the Girl Scouts do is flag ceremonies and understanding the importance of our democracy. So the girls that we have announcing the commands will be Rhea Agarwal, carrying the flag, Meredith Abbott. In the color guard, the rest of the color guard, Selena Ball, Manal Qureshi, Reese Ciciola, and Meredith Varley. Okay, come forward to just Rhea for now, and Mrs. Ciciola. You want to hold it?
All stand at attention. Color guard, advance. All please recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color guard, post the colors. Color guard dismissed.
Thank you very much, girls. I encourage you to stick around if you'd like for a continued civic lesson. We also have the zoning committee going on next door, which might be as equally as lively. Greg, can you do roll call?
Mr. Gallup?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mrs. Swartz?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Here.
And Mayor Ritter?
Here. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. We'll move on to reports. Mike, you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Anybody who's been watching the TV lately knows of all the coverage about the snow, and most of it. Thank you. Thank you. And for most of us, the snow forecast just means buying bread and milk. But for our local DPW, they've been gearing up for it. And just to give credit to their efforts, all the plows and salt spreaders are mounted, and the trucks have been checked, and the snow throwers and are serviced and ready. Friday, tomorrow, they'll begin to pre-treat the steeper slopes in town with brine. The salt dome in town is almost full, and they're scheduled to have 2 truckloads delivered of additional salt and salt tomorrow, so that they'll top it off. They're in close communication with the police department going into Friday night, so that they will be notified immediately when the snow starts to fall and when it starts to stick. and they have a team on standby to get out Friday night to begin salting and sanding the roads. If the snow accumulation is what predictions are for on Saturday, it will be a all-hands-on-deck response on Saturday. They've pretty much done everything they can do. They do issue a request to remind people that there is no parking on the street during a snow emergency. It makes a big difference on getting the trucks through and safety for the drivers and for your cars. So please keep the roads clear. Then on a totally separate subject, but still with the DPW, later on the agenda for tonight's meeting, there's a approval scheduled for an auction of township equipment. This would be the first auction in over 10 years that we've had. It includes about 12 vehicles and a long list of local, hand equipment for the DPW, blowers and mowers and snow throwers and things of that nature. All of them have had a long, hard life, but they're surplus equipment and they're up for auction. As a sign of the times, this auction is not going to have a individual auction date, and there'll be nobody with a gavel down at the Public Works garage. This is going to be an online auction on govdeals.com. So if we approve it tonight, you can log on, see what we have, and bid if you like. Mayor, that's it.
Thank you, Mike. Bob?
Sure. Joint rec, just remind everyone, even though Mike's talking about snow, that it's actually sign up for spring sports. So have a son or daughter interested in any of the local spring sports, so now's the time to sign up. Pilgrim Pipeline, just wanted to update the committee and the public that local municipalities have been meeting about once a month to talk about the pipeline, and while permits have not been submitted to the DEP yet, the municipalities are sharing ideas to make sure that their interests are represented when the permits are submitted by Pilgrim for the pipeline. So I want the residents to know that it is an ongoing dialogue among the various municipalities that are affected by the pipeline. We talk monthly about the issue, and as events warn and develop, we'll brief the public as to any formal announcements that we have to make sure the municipality's interests on the pipeline are advanced.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Karen?
Thank you, Your Honor. In keeping with all this talk about the weather, JCP&L is reminding you to tee up their emergency numbers in the event that we lose power. They are monitoring their social media on an extremely regular basis, so they will take reports of power outages both through Facebook and Twitter. You can text the word OUT to 544-877, which is the word lights, or call their emergency 800 number. Just because you assume your neighbors have called, if your power does go out, don't assume that you shouldn't call as well. They are pretty strident about stressing that. I had the pleasure of visiting with their regional dispatch office just last week, and it has grown increasingly automated and highly efficient, so you're not bothering people when you call in with a power outage. Their customer satisfaction is incredibly on the increase over the last few years from 2014 on in, and that's because of the diligence that they do monitor power outages called in by their clients, our residents. This past week, I had the honor of representing Chatham Township at the 87th birthday celebration of the Reverend Martin Luther King Interfaith Breakfast here in Morris County. It was a great gathering of folks from all segments of society, across our faiths, across our age groups, across every nationality and racial divide. It was a really wonderful gathering. It was a packed house, so I was honored to attend that. And last but not least, certainly not least, our senior center has a number of important things going on. They're having their first of open house Saturdays for our residents who are maybe looking for something to do. They're going to be open one Saturday a month from now through March. They will have double feature movies and some card games and just general gatherings. That's from noon till 5, and the first one will be this coming Saturday. They are excited to be planning their donors party for later on in the month for those who have donated their time and talent and treasure. Please remember to call the Senior Center hotline if you suspect emergency closings may be in order. That's 973-635-4565. And many events in the newsletter require registration in advance. So please pay a lot of attention to all the exciting events going on in the Chatham Township, in the Senior Center newsletter so that you can register in advance for some of their exciting events. That's what I got, Your Honor.
Thank you much. Kevin?
Thank you, Mayor. The Joint Court met on Tuesday evening. The Joint Court had its reorganization meeting. It's being chaired by the Borough, Chatham Borough, this year on a rotational basis. It's their turn. And the Joint Court continues to be one of the most positive shared services that we utilize. And again, another success story for us and for the members of the Joint Court.
Great. Brief update on the Communications Committee. Again, given the news of the storm coming this weekend, we remind all residents, if you haven't already, to sign up for the Act Now alerts. You can do so on the homepage of the Township website. If you didn't get the alert that went out this morning or this afternoon from the police department, you're not signed up. So please consider doing that when you get home this evening. Also, we're now at over 1,000 people liking our Facebook page, which is a great way to supplement the information we're getting out to the community. So again, if you haven't already, please register or sign up to like the Facebook page or our Twitter page as well. Again, that's more timely than the other alerts that typically go out. A lot of good information in terms of preparing for the winter and other winter conditions, as it were. Also want to invite Tom Salvis to come down briefly. Tom is the manager of our Government Access Channel, tapes our meetings in the back of the booth here. He's going to talk about a new initiative we discussed at the Public Safety Committee meeting as well this week, or last week for that matter. So.
Thank you, and good evening. Wanted to report just briefly that we're going to start a little project this year. We've been kind of gearing up for it for about the last 3 or 4 years that we've been doing more than 140 live Township Committee broadcasts consistently. We're going to produce short videos, 2 to 3 minutes, that will focus on certain aspects of township activity. We want to feature some of our staff, some of our first responders, and volunteers. We think that having them, in their own words, tell some stories very briefly about the work they do, the value that residents should derive from that work, will give everybody a little more insight into what goes on here, what goes on down at DPW and the police department and our fire departments, and also the Chatham Emergency Squad. We want to start to feature the up-close and personal look at the personalities that make Chatham Township the great place that it is to live. So we're going to start, I think, this month, and maybe our first subject will be a discussion with Chief Henley. And we'll be working with him to develop a series of questions that we might ask him. We'll sit with him, we'll do some recording, and then we'll go out and we'll get some what we call B-roll footage, which will be the shots on location that will specifically illustrate what he's talking about. And I think this will be interesting for our residents. We'll post them on the website and also on our social media. That's a look ahead. I'd be happy to answer a question or provide any clarification if you'd like.
Sounds like a great idea. Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Tom.
You know, it's interesting. We've already done some things for special events that primarily for the historical archives of the township, like the history of Noe Pond, the opening of the Geralda Farms Preserve, the 50th year of the Wilderness Act we did a couple of years ago. These are important things that we should have for the archives. We have the capability to work together collaboratively to do that, and so I think it's going to be a lot of fun for everybody. So we'll look forward to doing those and to also getting a response from the public as to what they think they'd like to hear and see.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
And to that end, I think it's a great opportunity to remind the public, if you have any suggestions for any kind of topics you'd like to see in these videos, montage, as it were, you can email the Communications Committee at communications@chathamtownship-nj.gov. Thanks again, Tom. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't remind folks, to let people know that our usual counsel, Albert Cruz, could not be here tonight, and Bill Robertson, his colleague, is here on his behalf. And then John Rushke, our town engineer, was actually, as we said earlier, over the township zoning board meeting taking place right now. So I guess we'll go off to the chief report.
Mayor, I'd like to just maybe recap 2015, discuss the outlook for 2016, and a couple of public service announcements. Just to recap 2015, the Police Department completed the accreditation process administered by the New Jersey State Association of Chiefs of Police, which took nearly 2 years and involved all 21 members of the department. It was a great accomplishment on their part. 2015, we hired a new officer. We promoted 2 officers to the rank of sergeant. We reestablished the Neighborhood Watch program, which had long been idle. 9 neighborhoods are now participating with anticipation of 2 or 3 to come on board in the near future. This year, I awarded several officers on the department in-house with some awards. 2 officers were given life-saving awards for saving the life of a 47-year-old resident who was found to be in full cardiac arrest. 4 officers were given certificates of achievement for handling an incident involving a distraught resident and a rather large butcher knife. They did an excellent job. They did not have to resort to deadly force, and they were recognized for that. Hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to incorporate an award ceremony into maybe the first half, early portion of the Township Committee meeting. There are a number of awards that go back over my tenure as chief for 3 years, and for various reasons, we haven't had the opportunity to publicly recognize them, but I think they should. There's a number of life-saving awards as well as some other great accomplishments on their part. Also in 2005, we added an all-terrain vehicle to the fleet to better access areas of town that can't be reached by other vehicles. In 2015, it's interesting, our call volume based on computer entries was 13,876. That's actually a 10% decrease from 2014. When I was looking at the numbers for 2015 in comparison to the totals of 2014, what jumped out at me is we saw a 30% reduction in residential burglaries. Unfortunately, we saw a 36% increase in domestic violence. I don't know if that number represents the fact that more people are calling us or domestic violence is on the rise. It's certainly something we're going to have to keep an eye out. It was actually 19 in 2015, and it was 12 in 2014. Some other numbers that we saw drastic increases, although in 2014 weren't very high, was a 90% increase in drug law violations and an 80% increase in liquor law violations. Again, the 2014 numbers were relatively low, which makes those percentages look high. The total call volume compared to 2014-2015, we saw a 10% decrease in total computer entries. So it went from 15,324 to 13,876, which represents about 38 calls a day for service of one type or another. In 2015, our officers received 1,432.5 hours of training. That comes out to an average of 75 hours per officer for the year for training. I'm proud to say that there are not many police departments in the state of New Jersey that commit more resources and time to training of their officers than we do here in Chatham Township. Actually, in conversation with other police chiefs, there's really no comparison to the amount of training that our officers get and those in other departments. We take great pride in the fact that our officers are very well trained. Let me see what else I have. 2016, we will complete a comprehensive overhaul of our agency's policies and procedures. This began shortly after the completion of the accreditation process. For those who have ever written policies and procedures, not a lot of fun, but since the ball was already rolling, on the heels of accreditation, we had a number of policies that needed to be either eliminated or updated. Again, that's a process that's being handled by all members of the police department, so everyone's got involvement in that. In 2016, we'll look to build upon the Neighborhood Watch program, expand it to as many neighborhoods as possible. We'll also look for ways to enhance our community policing initiative, and again, look forward to participating in the National Night Out campaign, which we've been doing for
30 years, 30 some odd years I've been here, 29 years. Just 3 quick public service announcements to close. You may have read recently of a success story involving our Operation Reassurance program. That was covered by some websites as well as Facebook and some other. I can tell you that it's a great program. Again, that's been in effect for the 29 years I've been here plus. I ask if you are an elderly resident or you know someone who lives in town and is an elderly resident, to please visit the police department website at www.ctpd.net, and you'll see right on the front page of the website the story involving Ms. Bowles. And then you can navigate from that story at the bottom to a link that will bring you to the Operation Reassurance website, and it clearly defines what it is and how you join and all that information. And one last, actually 2 last. We are in need of a crossing guard. We're short of crossing guard. We have one crossing guard from the borough who has offered to come over on an as-need basis, but he's not looking for anything permanent. So we are in need of a crossing guard. If you know someone, have them contact Lieutenant Miller at the police department, and we'll get them on board as quick as possible. And one last thing to touch on what Mr. Kelly said about the snow-covered roadways. The ordinance is, again, posted on the Facebook page from the police department. It's also posted on the website for the police department that the 7.9 snow-covered roadways indicates that parking on snow-covered roadways is prohibited until such time that snowplows have had the opportunity to come through and clear the roadways, and as long as it does not create an issue for the flow of traffic, you can then park in the roadway. I know, again, going back to the 29 plus years I've been here, is that it always seems to be a problem on the hills, more so on the low side as opposed to the high side. We ask that residents make every effort to get their cars off of the roadway. We understand that circumstances arise where, especially on the low side, they cannot get into the driveway because they've returned home and it's already snowed, and over the years I've seen a number of cars not stop until they've reached the biggest tree in the bottom of the backyard. I ask those residents who cannot get in their driveway or have questions to contact the police department, navigate to the prompt for the officer on duty, and speak with him, and we can come to some type of resolution as to what we'll do with your car. Again, to touch on it, it is a safety issue, especially in when there's a prediction for blizzards. I've been out there at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's difficult when you're driving down a snow-covered roadway, when you're responding to an emergency, and there's a car parked on the side of the road that's snow-covered. It looks like the front yards, looks like the roadway, it looks like everything, and at the last minute, the car is upon you, especially with the Department of Public Works guys. They're out there for long hours. Everything looks the same after a period of time, and it's not so much the damage to the cars as much as it is the injuries to the workers, not only Public Works employees, but the emergency first responders as well. So I ask, as the police chief, that you make every effort to get your car off the road. I know last year was an adjustment period for a number of residents because this is not something they had ever had to face in years prior, but within the starting last year and then this year, there's zero, there will be 0 permissions given unless there's extenuating circumstances. Outside of that, Mayor, that concludes my report.
Right. Thank you, Chief. And again, just want to commend you and your officers for the fine work that you do on behalf of the residents of Chatham Township. I think that recent article and a press release regarding Operation Reassurance speaks highly of the great work that you guys do. So thank you again. And we will certainly find the time in the near future to publicly recognize all your officers for their great work that they do. One other item on the public safety regarding the snowstorm is the fire department always likes to remind residents to please, if you have a fire hydrant on your block, by your street, to please shovel a 3-foot radius around these fire hydrants. God forbid something happens and the fire department has to respond to an emergency. The last thing you want them doing is shoveling around a fire hydrant when in fact they should be putting out the fire. So make it a neighborhood event. Go out there with your shovels with a neighbor and have some fun. With that, I guess, Tom, do you have any report? You just want to jump into the preliminary budget report?
Before I do, Mayor, I just want to go over a couple of things that are on the consent agenda. I just requested that you pull Resolution 47, authorizing the sale of surplus property. In reviewing the resolution as presented, I think we need to clean it up and flesh it out a little bit. There's no dates on it. The reference to govdeals.com that Committeeman Kelly mentioned is not included in the resolution, so I'd like to come back at the next meeting with the resolution that has more detail.
Okay.
Also, number 50, appointing the risk management consultant. Just for clarity, we did appoint a risk management consultant at the reorganization meeting. A gentleman named Dave Zagalia, who has been doing it for us for a number of years. He was with a company called Henry O. Baker, so the resolution named David Zagalia of Henry O. Baker, but he has subsequently left Baker and is with a different company. This resolution would simply recognize, again, that Dave Zagalia is our RMC, but he's now with a different company. So that's why you're seeing that on the agenda again. And that's it. And if you're ready, I'll do my budget.
Yes, definitely. And again, as you may have seen in the agenda tonight, Tom's going to be giving a preliminary budget overview. This is something we did last year as well. It's an opportunity for residents to get a better understanding in terms of how their dollars are spent. We'll be posting this online as well and publicizing it on our social media channels as well. And with that, we'll dim the lights and turn it over to Tom. Greg, would you mind? Is that flag in the way or no? Okay.
Best part. Tom gets to speak.
Mayor, this will be a brief presentation. We're only going to look at a preview draft of the appropriation side of the budget. As we complete the annual financial statement and get certified revenue figures, then we can put together the revenue side and blend it all together in a comprehensive package that ultimately you'll introduce. But tonight we're only going to touch on the appropriation side. This was the format that we followed last year. I think it worked pretty well so that we had some budget discussions at more than just one meeting. And all of you obviously are free to interrupt me at any point here if you have any questions as we go along. The first slide here is the calculation of the appropriations cap. And again, for people that aren't familiar with the process, appropriations is spending. It's authorizing the money to be spent. So the total general appropriations for 2015 was $14,513,814. From that, there are some deductions, which are called exceptions, $3,677,425. That's primarily debt service, the contribution to the library, some other things that are actual appropriations that are outside the cap limit. So the amount on which the cap is applied is then reduced to $10,836,389. Again, for those who aren't familiar or don't remember, the state there are two different cap limitations that we deal with. One is the cap on the appropriation on how much money you're allowed to spend. The other is the levy cap, which is a cap on how much money you're allowed to tax. We won't get to that tonight. We'll talk about that probably at the next meeting. The cost of living as certified by the state for 2015 was zero. So the built-in cap that we're dealing with is zero. So when you get down to the next line, the allowable operating appropriations, this is the inside the cap portion, is the same number as it was last year, $10,836,389. When you do the budget each year, you're allowed to bank any amount of the cap that was available and unused. So in 2014, we did what's called a cap bank ordinance. There's one on your agenda tonight for introduction for 2016. And in 2014, there was $316,771 still available that could have been appropriated and wasn't. So that is the cap bank. And we will be using some of that cap bank from 2014 in the 2016 budget because of the 0% allowance. So the total allowable appropriations as it stands right now is $11.1 million, $11,153,000. And that is 120,000, I'm rounding, but about 120,000 less than what would be permitted. So we're still, well under where we are allowed to be. And we, if you recall, in 2015, we chose not to do a cap bank ordinance, so there is no bank available from 2015. So the 2014 bank of 316, we're using 120. The remainder would still be available to use in 2017 if needed and would lapse after that. And we are recommending a cap bank ordinance be adopted this year to create bank for future years in the event that it's needed. Any questions on that? It's a lot of numbers, and I know it gets a little confusing, but okay. This next slide is a summary of the various categories where we spend our money. And under general government, we're looking at $1,949,000. That's an increase of about $11,000 over last year. Very small percentage increase. Health and welfare is virtually unchanged, about a $4,100 increase. Public safety goes from $3,128,000 to $3,190,000, an increase of just under 2% or $61,450. DPW total goes from $2,002,000 to $2,015,000. Again, very small increase, $13,000, which is less than 1%, 0.6%. Insurance increases $50,000, an increase of just over 2%. Utilities are actually reduced, thanks to lower energy costs and gasoline costs, so those are reduced by about $38,000. Here is the category that is the largest increase in this year's budget besides debt service, and that is Social Security, pension, and the low SAP award program. Pension costs are actually the biggest chunk of this. Social Security is pretty flat, but pension costs are increased. The total increase in this category is $109,205, and that is just over 9.5%. Again, with the bulk of that being the increase in the pension costs. The contribution to the library is increased by 2.6% or $26,000, and debt service is increased by 12.2%, $114,868. That is primarily a result of increase in interest costs because we authorized more capital improvements last year than what we normally do. If you recall, the authorization in 2015 was $2.2 million, which included $1 million for the purchase of the new fire truck for the Green Village Fire Department. So we'll be looking at doing less capital improvements this year, probably closer to $1 million a year, and we will not see such a large increase again next year. And actually, I am going to talk a little bit about the levy cap just to show you where we stand. There's 2012 levy cap bank expiring of over $500,000. 2013 levy bank still available of $366,000 to use this year. 2014 levy cap bank available of $423,000. 2015 levy cap bank of $654,000, and a total levy cap bank available and expired of just over $2 million. And just so that everybody understands what that means is cumulatively, since 2012, when the state imposed the mandatory 2% cap on the levy, we could have levied an additional $2 million over that period of time that we did not. So I think that, again, is testament to keeping a lid on things and taking a very conservative approach to the way we do stuff. So we will be obviously in good shape as it comes to the levy cap. We won't have any problem whatsoever in meeting the state mandate on that. This is information on where your 2015 tax dollars went, or more specifically, the total amounts levied for the various purposes. The county taxes for Chatham Township were just over $8 million. County open space was $337,000. So the total for the county was $8,415,000. School taxes, the township's portion of the school budget was $35,852,000. Tax for municipal purposes to fund all the municipal operations was $8,386,000, and municipal open space of $153,609, and the library tax of $1,015,000. So those are the taxes that were levied in 2015. And not to beat a dead horse, but as you know, the school gets about 67 cents out of every dollar. This is, I believe, going to be our last slide tonight. It's just highlights of the various categories. Total salaries and wages throughout the budget are increased by $23,000. That's 0.4%, less than 0.5%. Health insurance is increased by $50,000, which is a 2.5% increase. Employees' contribution towards health insurance increases $80,000 and is now up to $339,000. And all employees now are at the fourth year of the four-year phase-in. So we will not see a large increase in the employee contribution in the future, but everybody who is contributing is going to be staying at the level of contribution where they are, or if their income goes up and brings them up to a higher category, then their contribution would go up. But that 339. Approximately that amount is what we can count on collecting from the employees each year moving forward. And pension costs, as I mentioned earlier, increased $109,205, or 13%. Part of the reason that is increased as much as it is that last year there was actually, the state actually took action to reduce the employer's contribution, that is the township and the various jurisdictions around the state. And the way they did it, as I understand, part of the pension reforms that were adopted back in 2010 included an increase in the employees' contribution rate. So the police, for example, were increased, I think, from 8.5% of their salary up to 10%, and the public employees were increased in a 7-step process with an incremental increase each July. Well, it was expected, or I believe anticipated, that the employees' increased contribution would actually go into the pension. It turns out it didn't. It was given back to the employers in the form of a reduced bill for the last year. So the last year's bill, 2015, I think was somewhat artificially low for the employers, and now you see a 13% increase to get back on track. And capital improvements is not updated yet from last year. So we're still gathering our information. I'm expecting some estimates from John Rushke on where we're going with our road and drainage improvements for 2016 to add to what we still have approved in 2015 that hasn't been completed yet. You'll recall that the road improvement money included doing drainage and paving throughout Wickham Woods. The drainage that was authorized, I think, is now completed, and we'll be doing the paving of those streets where the drainage was already done. And we're looking now to go and do the remainder of that neighborhood and essentially do the same thing, do drainage and paving. And we may or may not, depending on the overall numbers, look to budget it all in 2016. My guess at this point is that we'll probably recommend going forward with doing the drainage this year and the paving next year in order to spread out the cost. So that's it.
Great. Does anyone have any questions?
Tom, can you explain what is encompassed in health and welfare, if I might ask?
Yeah, that's the Board of Health and Animal Control primarily.
Tom, if someone were to say you have to cut $80,000 from the budget, where would you look to cut?
Well, I think the first thing I would do would be to cut the Township Committee's salaries and eliminate those.
Okay, so now what do we do with the $79,500?
You know, Bob, it's an interesting question. There's really, and you know, it's going to sound like a cop-out, but there's really not a lot of place. How much are you looking for? What was the number?
I threw out 80,000. If you have to do it, someone said you just got to find it. I'm just curious as to where you would cut.
I would squeeze all the operating expenses that all the departments have, you know,
Such
because
as?
that's really where it is. Road repairs, buildings and grounds. You know, you'd cut the police department. You'd cut, you know, 10 or 15,000, and they would have to live without something this year. That's really, you know, most of this is insurance, for example. You're not changing that. You know, debt service, you're not changing it. It is what it is. It's already been pre-authorized. Pension, it is what it is. You're not going anywhere with that. So there's, you know, when I tell you that you have a lean budget, I think the numbers speak for themselves, that we are substantially under cap every year, both on the spending side and on the levy cap. We have, I believe, squeezed every nickel that we can. We've reduced the size of this government in the 15 years that I've been here. Every department is smaller than it used to be, and by substantial numbers. Public Works Department at one time had 35 employees. They now have 21. Police Department, I think, had 27 or 28. They're down to 21. The administrative offices, if you walk through here in the afternoon, you know, it's like a ghost town. We have a lot of people, one-person offices that are doing the job that 2 or 3 people used to do. So there's only so much of that you can do, and I think we've done it. I really do. You know, if we had to, if for some reason we were up against the cap and we could not, then you're looking at probably laying people off, you know, because there's not that much in the operating expenses. There's not a lot of discretionary spending that goes on. You know, when the Public Works Department, you know, buys salt, it's because they need it, not just because they want it. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. But, you know, could it be done? Sure. Could it be done without consequences? I don't think so.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Great. Thanks, Tom. Did we get the room relit and mics back up? It's now the opportunity for our hearing of citizens. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for the public hearings tonight. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and permit that all are heard, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And when you come to the microphone, please state your name and your address.
Mimi Mehta, 45 Hall Road. Recently, the skate park has been closed, as it had been a couple years ago, and I wanted to inquire about why it was closed and make this information available to the public.
Tom, do you have
It was closed for repairs.
But what is the plan in terms of reopening it?
I don't know. That's a decision that has yet to be made as to whether we're going to make those repairs, whether we're going to modify the equipment, possibly change it out. The inspection, latest safety inspection report that we had suggested that we consider doing away with the types of materials, the skate light types of equipment, and consider going to concrete. So that's a discussion that hasn't taken place yet. But in the meantime, the winter season and the need for repairs and Public Works being busy with other things, we closed it.
Okay, so let me just, I just want to make sure, is there anyone on the committee who would like to be, I know you said 3 minutes, so I don't want to use too much time, which is why I started out with questions, but there is a lot of background to this skate park, and Mary Rowe and I worked very hard with the Township Committee a couple years ago. It's when the park was closed due to an insurance report that specifically said, if you don't do the following things, then we're going to have to close the park. And we had a bunch of meetings where the cost of repair was estimated. There were questions about, you know, who uses the park, and we went through a long analysis and process with the committee. And at the conclusion of that process, we were at a meeting here in October of 2013, and we were told that the township would maintain the park, and that we didn't have to worry that it would fall into this state of disrepair again, and we had nothing to worry about. And I took a look at the insurance inspection report, I actually have a copy for anybody who would like it. In 2012, the insurance inspector specifically said, you must close the park until this is addressed. The recent report simply says, in terms of, they said, yes, it would be nice if you had concrete structures, but in terms of their recommendations, they say, you need to do the maintenance, you need to fix the skate light, and you need to screw the screws in. There's nothing, at least that I could see, and this is what I'd like to understand, about anything beyond basic maintenance that they're asking for. They're saying, they did make a suggestion they'd like to see something else, but that's always been the case. And so, they lay out all the things that they believe the township should address, and they give them a priority, and they're all equal, and they all say this is important, but it doesn't say, that we need to close the park. So it is winter now, but we had an unseasonably warm year, and the park has been closed for months. And, my son went to college, so it took me a while to notice. Otherwise, I was under the impression annual maintenance, I understand it has to close, for the maintenance. So this is what I'd like to understand.
And we have done substantial maintenance since that last fundraising drive and repairs that we made. I believe we've now, if I'm not mistaken, we've used up all the skate light material that we had. And, based on the fact that there's a need to make repairs, we closed it temporarily. No decision has been made going forward as to what the long-term answer is going to be, whether we're going to change out the equipment, whether we're going to continue to, repair it with skate light, notwithstanding that the JIF safety report said the skate light material is not suitable. That's a decision that hasn't been made yet. This committee hasn't even had that discussion yet.
The committee doesn't know about it. So what is that process to make the committee aware? I'm having a hard time understanding why it's a question. Why is it an open question when the promise was made that it would be maintained? Like, what
it has been maintained. There's a need to make repairs now that we don't have time or material to do. We have other priorities, that's all.
Tom,
I haven't said we're not going to repair it. I said we're not doing it right now.
do we have an estimate in terms of the additional costs to repair?
I have none of that yet, Mayor. No.
Okay. Well, why don't we investigate this further, and we'll get back to you at some point.
I just want to put things in perspective. Oh, sorry, Mary Rowe, 65 Highland Avenue, Chatham Borough. A new concrete park is on the order of magnitude of $300,000, and skate light is like a couple $100 per panel. So last time repairs were made, we raised $15,000 approximately, and we had enough money to resurface the blacktop and purchase skate light. So to buy the skate light is a few $1,000s, and to replace the whole park with concrete is $300,000. So when we made the repairs last time, we talked about going to concrete, and nobody had the pocketbook for that kind of a thing. And so unless the township is suddenly flush in cash and wants to put up $300,000, it's a big ordeal to say we're just going to switch over to concrete. And the report doesn't say that we must switch. What they're saying is that with a concrete park, you don't have this annual maintenance, and so other places have switched over, but they didn't say it was unsafe to continue with repairing the skate light. So basically what we have now is we have the blacktop surface with wooden structures, and the skate light is the special wooden top coat, kind of like a bowling alley has a smooth wooden surface. The special product that is used on the top of the ramps is the skate light, and it comes in 4x8 sheets like plywood or whatever, but it's a special surface, and so that's why it's more expensive. But it's only a few $1,000s. And a couple of years ago when we raised the money to fix the park, we recommended at that time that we continue to sell banners every year because we made about $5,000 selling banners at the park for the repairs. And Tom assured us that buying new skate light was not a big deal, it wasn't a lot of money, and it was something that the township would do, just the same way as they buy mulch for Castle Park. They would buy skate light for the skate park.
And Mary,
so
we
the
have
fact
done that, but
I
it's not
understand that.
holding up. It's not holding up. So
It's
are
not
we,
holding
are we
up.
supposed to just keep doing it forever? There comes a point in time when you have to make a decision about whether or not
Well,
it
it's not holding
continues
up
to be
because
viable.
they had the fire and whatever else. It wasn't used up because of wear and tear. There was an
You say
incident.
that like it's, you know, they had that fire. One of the
Well,
kids
in
set
the
it
same
on
way,
fire.
in the same way that the Cougar Field also was vandalized, where on Halloween kids went out and vandalized Cougar Field. That doesn't mean that we're not going to fix Cougar Field because some kids vandalized it. So, I mean, what I'm saying is that that was an extenuating circumstance of something that happened that needed a lot of skate light to repair, but that doesn't mean that it was because of wear and tear that it's not holding up. So I just want to express our frustration in the sense that we went out to the community and we raised over $15,000. Chatham Athletic Foundation donated $5,000. The J.C.'s donated money. And we promised them that the park was going to be open. And then to hear that, oh, well, we're considering whether we're going to maintain it or not, is kind of surprising when it's only been 2 years. The park, the surface was redone in the fall of 2013, and the fall of 2015 it's closed with this question mark as to whether it's going to be closed, whether it's going to be opened or not opened. And Mimi and I volunteered our services to say, like, well, if this is something that needs to be investigated, let's form a committee again to investigate it. And it doesn't seem as if anybody wants any input from the community and the users and the people who donated their money to fix it just 2 years ago. Not even counting the money, the $300,000 or however much was raised, $150,000 that was raised initially back in 2003. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you very much. Is there an active committee right now or no?
There is no committee. It was an ad hoc committee back a couple of years ago, and Mimi and I kind of formed it because her son noticed it wasn't open, and my son noticed it didn't open, and we met on Highland Avenue, and we kind of came up and started working on it. And we worked very closely with the prior mayor and the old rec liaison, Kathy Abbott, and we looked into things, and that's how we found the product that we're able to use to resurface the park. And we went out to the businesses and sold banners and, publicized things and, and raised the $15,000.
Do you have any current stats in terms of the utilization of the facility itself?
Everything that we have is from a few years ago, but I will say that once the park was refinished, it has been packed ever since. And I know we have some users here who want to say a few words about what the skate park means to them. So,
To put you on the spot.
yeah.
Hi, my name is Steven Stromberg. I'm a freshman at Chatham High School. I was raised in Chatham Township. I love to play lacrosse, and I also love to skateboard as a hobby with all my friends. But unfortunately, my friends can't make it because of their sports commitments. All of my friends skate at the skate park on like Saturdays and Sundays when we're off from school, and it's like the best time. This is how I like get away, enjoy, and like get away from school. It relieves lots of stress for me, and I started skateboarding about 1 year ago with all my friends because they loved it, and I'm really enjoying it, and I can't stop. The skate park is an enclosed environment where everyone wears helmets, and it's much safer than skating in the streets. People of all ages enjoy the skate park, and I urge you to make the necessary repairs and to keep the skate park open. Thank you.
Steve? Of course.
Hi, my name is Joni McKenna. We live in Morris Township, about a mile and a half from the skate park, and we really didn't know who pay for the skate park or anything. We're just like, wow, the skate park, this is great. By the police station, so it's nice because it makes it a little more safe because of the boys that are there, you know. And it's just a great place. And I definitely understand. I mean, to maintain a park like this, it's not easy. So I'm just finding out, you know, that you guys have been doing this, and you know, if there's anything we could do to work together to really try and keep this park, it is such a privilege. It's an amazing. I tell these boys, you know, sometimes I'm there and I see, you know, the bottles, lots of. I say, guys, don't you get this? This is a privilege. This park. They're closing. Some of the parks are closing. They're just not being maintained. And really, we really have to try and do whatever we can to try and keep this park. I know it's tough, and she said, I don't know, my son says this particular park is kind of too small for the concrete. I don't know things, but you know, I just want to express my support for really trying to do what we can and work together to try and keep it open, because it's a great place. I think the guys really respect each other. You'll see them. You have to, you know, you have to let people go down the ramp at certain times, and you know, the boys are pretty respectful, and like I said, because the police station's there, it's nice. So.
Great. Well, thank you.
I appreciate your efforts in asking people to clean up also. So I think it's a valuable lesson to our youth, and oftentimes at our sports fields, you know, we see a lot of water bottles left around, and I think it's you know, leave a place better than you found it. And so I appreciate those efforts. And as you can see, you know, our skate park did get vandalized, and it got burned, and structural damage, and it led to this. So just reinforcing that message is a very positive thing.
And just one other thing, because some of you weren't on the committee back when we did this. The last time we went through this, we went to Lafayette and Chatham Middle School, and we polled all the kids at lunch. So we asked every single table three simple questions. Do you rollerblade or skateboard? Have you ever been to the park, and are you interested in going to the park? And so we polled, you know, over 1,400 kids, and 60% of them rollerbladed or skateboarded. 35% have been to the park at some point, and 60% had an interest in going to the park in the future. So, and that's just Lafayette in the middle school. We didn't go to the high school because lunch at the high school is just too hard. But, so there is a tremendous interest. Now, does every kid go every day? No, it's seasonal. My son plays football, wrestles, and plays baseball. So in the heat of his season, he may be too busy to go, but in between seasons and in the summertime, you know, he goes as much as he can. And some kids don't do organized sports, and the skate park is a really great outlet for them to get some exercise, because, you know, there's some kids who just aren't that organized sports kind of a kid, you know. And so the skate park is like a playground for that teenager to go to. So,
thank you.
Can I suggest, you know, a way to maybe move the ball forward since I'm joint rep? Maybe Tom, myself, Rich, Mimi, or Mary can meet in the next couple of weeks at the park and just see specifically what the issues are and come up with some, you know, at least a plan of action to present to the committee so we can move the ball forward. Does that sound reasonable?
That's fine with me. Yeah, I mean, that's part of when I mentioned that it hasn't been discussed yet. I anticipated that it would be part of our discussion about capital improvements this year, and particularly the section on recreation improvements. You know, we have some other things to discuss. Colony Pool, for example, there's substantial repairs that need to be made there, so there's going to be some competing interests, and I certainly, you know, welcome the opportunity to go and visit that and look at what our choices are moving forward. If we can make repairs again and buy another couple of years out of it, and the JIF safety inspectors are okay with that, then that's probably what we'll do. But, you know, I don't want anybody to, you know, think that this was any kind of a permanent decision. You know, the Public Works Department had, you know, busy season, and they just didn't have the materials or the time to make the repairs, so I told them, close it until you do.
Fair enough. And so I'll send an email, and we'll set something up the next couple of weeks, 8 in the morning or something, and move it forward.
Great. Thank you, Bob.
And now for something completely different. First, my name is Paul Payton, 67 Candace Lane, and congratulations to the newly elected members and the newly elevated. And I was handed a letter on the way in from Brendan Keating, who is the former candidate for Morris County Freeholder, asked if I would read it into the record. My problem is that it takes about 3.5 minutes from the length of the copy. If I could just summarize it and hand you the letter.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated. It's on a subject that I have wanted to come in and talk about. And I'll just read a couple of salient paragraphs. Mr. Keating cites an article about a public safety grant from the County Board of Chosen Freeholders, stating that our mayor has expressed a desire to bring military-style M4 rifles to the Chatham Township Police Department. It then goes on, I haven't spent a lot of time pre-reading this, so you'll have to forgive me, then goes on to say that we already have such weaponry in the county at several locations that is on call when it is needed, if it is needed. I saw this in your welcoming statement, which I read online. Sorry, I wasn't here to hear it exactly. And it came right after the paragraph that said we are living in the safest town in the state of New Jersey. And we're doing just fine with the weaponry we have. So what I don't understand is why we need to go to M4 assault rifles, the kind of militarized hardware that a lot of police departments are moving away from, a lot of towns are moving away from, which can double as grenade launchers. I mean, we don't have that problem. We're not an inner city. Yes, something could happen. You know, nobody expected Sandy Hook. But out of 154 other towns in Connecticut, yes, something could happen. But having this type of weaponry in the police department would not have solved that problem at the moment that it went down. It just seems to me that these weapons of war are inconsistent with the needs of the town and also with the town's citizenry, with the vibe here and the values here. It also sends a hell of a bad message to our kids and to the citizens. The money is coming from a public safety fund, which is what I gather from reading Mr. Keating's letter. This is also new information to me tonight. Boy, there's a lot of things we could put that to. Infrastructure, filling the potholes, fixing the signage down at River Road and Fairmount Avenue. Yes, I know it's a county road. I've been put off on that for years and years and years. If you come up River Road on either side, there's no indication there's a crossroad there at Fairmount. That's a hell of a dangerous intersection. I go through it twice a day. You know, we can fix that. We can fix our lighting problems. We can, get rid of old fluorescent lights and put in much more energy efficient lighting. We could put it in the surplus. We could reduce taxes. A lot of things we could do with that money besides arming our citizenry to the teeth. And I urgently suggest, first, let me also state, I am not anti-gun. I am anti-excess. You know, guns are great. If you kill it, eat it. You're a good hunter. You know, and good luck killing it. I can't get near it. But, beyond that, this is dangerous. This is unnecessary. And I really think it's a misguided proposal meant with a good heart, but I think the outcome would be very, very negative. I speak for others who have posted on the Facebook page about this, but I don't know their names. My wife couldn't be here tonight. She would say something too, but she's off representing her nonprofit. You're stuck with me, but I hope I got the message across. I hope you'll take it under consideration and drop this proposal. It's just really excess. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate your comments.
Hi, I'm Craig Alperowitz, 313 Shunpike Road in Chatham. I have a father of 2 daughters, so the skate park is beyond my realm of understanding. Barely even, I know it was there, but I have no idea. But 2 things occurred to me as everyone was talking. One, you may have considered this already, corporate sponsorship or naming rights in order to fill some kind of budget gap. and dare I say it, membership dues, perhaps. Maybe for people that don't belong, that don't live in Chatham Township, that could help support it. Just two things to park with you. I'm here because I don't even know if this is true, but I got a notice about a Verizon cell tower in Pine Street. Is that somewhere else?
Board meeting.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, great. I'm glad I'm here anyway because I'm learning a lot. So that's probably being handled over there. So I'll let them deal with it. But I just was surprised I didn't hear anything. So anyway, thanks.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else like to come up and speak? All right, moving on. Thank you very much. We've got a couple of ordinances we're going to discuss. The first is related to liquor license fee amendments. It's an ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County Morris, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 6 of the Township Code to amend the annual renewal fee for liquor licenses. Is there any discussion on this, or
just so everyone
Greg?
is aware of the genesis of this ordinance, several years ago when we created the potential for a third retail consumption license, the committee at the time reviewed the fees that were in place at the time. State law allows us to increase a liquor license fee up to 20% from one year to the next to a maximum of $2,500. The consumption license is already at the maximum fee that we can charge. The distribution license is obviously still well below that. So this is in keeping with the process that we undertook over the past several years to incrementally raise that fee toward the $2,500. So that's why I put it on the agenda for the committee's consideration, assuming that you want to still continue that effort.
I think so. Any discussion on this particular ordinance?
No.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Gallup?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. The next ordinance we're going to discuss is the ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, authorizing acceptance of a conservation easement from Susan Drive for Block 20, Lot 17, 35 Susan Drive.
Albert is not here to address this, but this is a pretty routine ordinance as well. We have a need for a conservation ordinance on the subject property, and that needs to be accepted by ordinance. So that's how this got on the agenda as well.
Okay.
Is this a conservation?
Yeah, there's
or
a
a sewer easement?
Yeah, there's a typo in there. I need to fix that for the official version, but it is a conservation easement.
Is this an easement that who requested this easement? Is this through the planning board requested this easement? And
I don't remember the details of, the request came, I think, from the resident, from their attorney to Albert, and he worked with them and generated the easement itself, and the ordinance is just the formal process for accepting it.
yeah, okay. Okay.
Any discussion on this? All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Gallup?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
And Mayor Ritter?
Yes.
And the public hearing for this and the prior ordinance will be February 4th.
Thank you. The next ordinance up is ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank, NJSA 40A:4-45.14.
This is Tom, basically.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, cap bank ordinance, this ordinance does not actually appropriate any money for spending. It merely creates a bank for future use over and above what the adopted budget provides. So I'm not sure if I have a better way of saying it. That's what it does. It would create, it takes last year's appropriations, adds 3.5%. That amount is what would be banked for future use in the event that it was needed. But it doesn't appropriate any additional funds to be spent in 2016.
Great. Is there any discussion on this one? There's a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Gallup?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes.
Public hearing on February 4th.
Thank you. These next two ordinances, I'll read the headline, I guess, and Chief, if you want to just opine on them after the fact. There's been some discussion of possibly redirecting this back to the Public Safety Committee for further discussion. But the first one is ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, creating a unified electronic reporting system for dealers in precious metals and other secondhand goods.
Currently, we have no businesses in town that are dealing in precious metals or secondhand goods that we're aware of. Rapid came about obviously with the epidemic, the heroin epidemic, and the increase in burglaries and thefts. The prosecutors from each county are requesting that the police departments come on board with Rapid, Regional Automated Property Information Database. Rapid is a web-based system that serves as a central repository for capturing secondhand business transactions at the point of sale. The system is able to communicate with pawn shop transaction software that enables the uploading of transactions in a seamless and secure manner. Benefits of Rapid is it's linked to the NCIC article file, National Crime Information Center article file. There's a phone number search, there's sex offender registry notifications, and it also has a robust search feature with Craigslist, eBay, and the internet where goods are sold, address alerts, associates, near hits, and statewide and nationwide reporting. Local ordinance, a database approved by the chief of police. There's a $250 fee per store per year. Report by noon of the next business day. Upload photo of seller at the time of the sale. Input any serial numbers or engravings. Maximize transactions per day or week. Capture phone number of the seller. In order for the police department, and more importantly the detective bureau, to be able to access Rapid, we must have an ordinance in place. And there is no cost to the township. The cost is taken on by the businesses at $250 a business, and they pay. I'm not exactly sure who they pay. I don't know if they pay the township, and then we're obligated to then forward those funds to Rapid. There has to be someone on the other end who needs to pay the bills. So I'm assuming that $250 fee goes to the people who operate Rapid. In a nutshell, back in the day when we had a burglary and family heirlooms were stolen, jewelry was stolen, we would have to drive to those locations that had pawn shops. And pawn shop owners are not the easiest people to deal with. They're not the most cooperative. Sometimes they had it, sometimes they didn't, sometimes they had it and wouldn't tell us they had it. And they only had to keep it for so long, and then in most cases with the gold, they would melt it down, and then that item was lost forever. Now with the Rapid system is that they're required to provide identification as well as phone numbers and a government ID in order to pawn that. And if you've seen the system, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to see the system and how it works. It is amazing. It certainly provides a much more advanced tool for us to recover. And if you've ever been the victim, and obviously in my career I've dealt with many victims of crimes and burglaries, they just want the property back. And really what Rapid does is it gives us the opportunity to get the property back to the victim as quickly as possible before the time elapses and it's melted, destroyed, resold, or whatever the case is. So we need the ordinance at the request of the prosecutor's office in order to be part of Rapid. It's a growing process in the state of New Jersey, and without a doubt, a short period of time, every agency will be part of Rapid. So that's why I asked that we pass this ordinance so that we can better serve the public.
discussion?
Yeah, please. Thanks, Chief. And I had actually, I'll mention this, you know, I had, the prosecutor at the League of Municipalities meeting had raised this issue at the last public safety meeting. I encouraged the chief to, you know, let's get going with this because it sounded something that would be appropriate, and certainly, as you stated, in burglaries. But after looking through this ordinance, it's quite lengthy. It puts certainly a lot of requirements on both the clerk, and it empowers the police chief maybe to a level that certainly needs somewhat of a legal opinion. And often we like to get professional opinions and we like to get legal opinions. I did speak to Albert about this briefly, and it just, I think we just need to look at it a little bit closer. I don't know where this $300 fee is going, this $250 fee, why it has to be that much. I question why you cannot get on to Rapid if you need to. This is the exact thing that strikes me as odd, that we need a resolution for police departments to work together or the county to work together with us. So anyway, I take responsibility for maybe pushing this forward without, or encouraging the chief to push it forward without maybe having a full look-see from the legal side of this and a perspective from that nature.
Well, the only thing I can add to that is the prosecutor's office is filled with lawyers. There's nothing but
Yes,
lawyers on
you
that.
are.
So I'm assuming that it was a large group of lawyers who got together to actually create the ordinance, or the draft ordinance. I know Albert had some changes. I didn't get a chance to see it, but he wanted to make a couple changes to the ordinances that were done in Somerset County, where he's already created ordinances for communities in Somerset County.
Right.
And I would have to trust, from a legal standpoint, being the attorney, that it's clean, the ordinance. Again, I just don't have the answer of where that $250 goes. I know the town would have to collect it based on the ordinance. I just don't know what we do after we collect it. And I should probably have that answer, and it probably sits somewhere. It just doesn't sit with me right now.
All right, is there any further discussion? Is there, you guys want to put this on the back burner to get the additional questions answered?
Sure. Okay.
So Chief, yeah, if you could find additional details.
Yeah, the $250, how it's collected and where it goes, and...
I mean, it's not even that, really. I mean, it is that. I don't know why we're charging it, right? We put a lot of onus. If we did have these businesses, there are already a lot of demands on them in this ordinance, and then we turn around and slap them with an annual fee on top of that, and it just, you know.
Well, I can tell you from personal knowledge, in Morris County, there's one reseller that's in Dover or somewhere up in that area.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because part of my question would be to get this clarified also. In the front page, it says dealer means any person, partnership, limited liability company, corporation, or other entity who either wholly or in part engages in or operates in any of the following trades of business: the buying for purposes of resale of precious metals, jewelry, or other secondhand goods as defined herein. That could go beyond pawnbrokers, and I just think there's some things that just need to be clarified.
Yeah, I think virtually every jeweler that makes rings and necklaces also purchase gold from people. You know, you could collect your wife's old jewelry that she doesn't want anymore. If it's gold, take it to any jeweler and they'll buy it from you. Yeah. This would now create a whole thing for you to have to be photographed, and each piece to have to be photographed, and you have to tell where you got it. And
there's a comprehensive process for those businesses. Again, this is pushed out by the prosecutor's office. This is something that they want. This is something that we'd like to have to better serve the community. You know.
I get it.
Again,
I just think they could streamline it a little.
My question would be, if you buy and sell jewelry over the internet through eBay, would you, are you really operating a business, or are you just dealing in precious metals?
Well, if you suggest that there's one pawnbroker in Morris County that you're aware of, and yet you drive down Route 10 and it says we buy gold, and you see the estate sale area of a jeweler, you know, you could walk in and say, this piece belonged to my grandmother. Does that make you a pawnbroker?
Antique shops.
You know, and it's just all of a sudden you're not even talking about people who are actually pawnbrokers for the sake of looking like pawnbrokers. They look more like regular establishments on Main Street.
Well,
So,
we have no jewelry
Right.
businesses per se in town. We don't have any pawn shops. What this ordinance allows us to do is get on board.
Right.
It allows us to go into the, onto the website and essentially do our job and
Right.
try to get the property
And it
back.
does
I'm not looking
specifically-
at it as going after the person who buys
Right.
and sells on eBay, or, like I said, we have no businesses in town, we don't have any jewelry stores left in town. I'm not looking at it on that side.
Right.
I'm looking at it from my point.
right, and I
Of
think
being
that,
able, of being able to get into the system, again, to better
Right.
serve the victims of crime, especially property crimes, and trying to get the property back.
if I'm not mistaken, it kind of specifically says we're not going after the garage sales, and we're not
No, no,
going
no.
after people, individuals doing this.
No,
That
absolutely
it
not.
specifically says that in there, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely not. I'm looking at it on the back end.
All right, well, why don't we move this to the Public Safety Committee? Kevin, you can take the lead and help and revise this accordingly, and we can revert back at a future meeting.
Yeah, I don't know how much revision can be done on it. I guess we'd have to check with Albert.
Yep.
But I know there was
It would just be helpful to have clarification, I think, on
sure.
some things.
And he may have the answers.
Yeah.
And I'll certainly take those questions to him tomorrow and see if we can get those answers sooner rather than later.
Fantastic, thanks. Next ordinance, ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, creating a unified electrical reporting system for dealers in scrap metal.
It's the same.
Same thing.
Same thing.
So we will involve it.
Well, I would think that this would be actually, from where we are in Chatham Township, I would think that this is actually a little bit more prevalent of an issue. I mean, I understand the ordinance is probably for the same purpose, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
Right.
scrap metal is your big recycling businesses.
Well, I know, but how many building sites are people going through scouring for the copper wiring and everything else? I mean, I would think that there's a big market out there in a township like ours where the properties are constantly being vacated and demolished or semi-demolished and things like that.
Right, we just had a case somewhere in town, I don't remember exactly what street, but the home was under renovation. Might have been right here on Marsville Road, and someone got in and stole
All the copper wiring,
copper,
right?
the copper piping.
And the piping.
And here's the issue is that now, wherever they take that copper to recycle it, whether it's South Plainfield or Newark or wherever it is, that legitimate business now is supposed to document
Right.
that, just like the jewelry store, the pawn shop is supposed to do when you resell precious metals. So, again, it's another tool, and again, that ordinance, we're looking at it on the back end, not on the front end. 'Cause we don't have any scrap dealers in town.
No, but I'm inclined to say that there's no
I
shortage.
can guarantee.
There's probably no shortage of where to find it, though, so.
Great. We'll move this one off the agenda as well. Moving on to the consent agenda. Anybody have any comments on that? Greg, you want to read it? So we're removing...
Yes, this evening we have Resolution 2016-42, receipt of reports, 2016-43, approving meeting minutes, 2016-44, approving executive session minutes, 2016-45, appointing committee members, 2016-46, authorizing grant application for municipal alliance funding for fiscal year 2017. We pulled item number 6. Number 7 is Resolution 2016-48, approving fire department memberships, 2016-49, releasing escrow balances, 2016-50, appointing risk management consultant, 2016-51, regarding signatures on checks, 2016-52, refunding permit fees, and 2016-53, refunding overpayment of taxes.
Are any comments on the consent agenda? A motion to approve?
So moved.
Or second?
Second.
Mr. Gallup?
Yes to all.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Swartz?
Yes to all.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is a discussion item regarding a possible ordinance regarding Spring Street. Well, you know it's been a topic for some time now. This is Spring Street over by the back path to Southern Boulevard. Concern by parents there and pick up and drop off of their children. The parking situation there and trying to alleviate congestion, so reduce any potential accidents with children crossing the street, despite the fact that there's a crossing guard there. This ordinance should be in everyone's packet. Although, Greg, I don't actually see it here.
It's there, yeah.
There should be two separate ordinances because they refer to two different sections. After the ones that the electronic system.
Did everyone have that copy in front of them, or you got it, Bob?
Yeah, they're right to search for it, though.
Yeah, I got, Kevin gave me his, so we can share. I don't know, Bill, do you want to talk about this, or should we just?
Well, I can identify and go through what the ordinances are, but in terms of the issue and whether the ordinance properly
Microphone.
and whether the ordinance properly addresses the issues of concern, maybe the chief could go into that. But
certainly.
What Albert has prepared are two separate ordinances dealing with two separate sections of the municipal code. The first amends Section 7-10 of the revised general ordinances titled Stopping or Standing Prohibited During Certain Hours on Certain Streets. And what this ordinance does is that as to that section, it is amended to repeal stopping or standing limitations on Spring Street and to replace it with the following. And the street is Spring Street. The side is the east side, and the location is from the intersection of Lafayette Avenue to School Avenue. The second ordinance deals with a different section of the code, and that's Section 7-14, which deals with parking prohibited during certain hours on certain streets on Spring Street. And the proposed ordinance specifically repeals that section and replaces it with Spring Street East from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on school days from the intersection of School Avenue to Dale Drive, and Spring Street West from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on school days from the intersection of Dale Drive to Lafayette Avenue. And again, that deals specifically with prohibited parking in those areas. So those are the two ordinances that have been proposed, and if the chief wants to go into the details in terms of why those ordinances have been recommended.
Where do I start?
Start with which side is east and which side is
Let's say
I think of them as north and south.
tennis,
With the pool
yeah, you know what, the whole town goes on this angle right here. So we always have to look at the map when we're doing an accident report, because is it a little more east or is it a little more north? So let's just say that the tennis court side is the east side, and Southern Boulevard side is the west side. There are a number of ordinances, there are a number of signs. Some are conflicting, some ordinances are conflicting, the signs are certainly conflicting. There's a lot going on Spring Street by way of signage. The reason why we don't have a lot of signage, especially in the areas where the cars park, is because we're restricted from driving anything into the ground in the area of where the gas line is, for obvious reasons. We originally moved the crosswalk or the parking from Dale Drive behind the school to Spring Street for a number of reasons. Parking, a little safer, get away from the curb, and all those reasons. And I think we were going to do this in two phases. Let's first move the crosswalk and the crossing guard to Spring Street. Let's make that move first, and let's give it a little bit of time, and then we'll work through it. And now what we're coming to find out is that there isn't a lot of signage in that area. It's quite confusing for the parents who are parking because of the limited signage. They're parking on both sides. And I guess my issue is two-part. A, we have the emergency squad right there. So we have the ambulance coming and going, we have the first responders coming and going. The second thing that I have a problem with is any on-street parking. When you have any on-street parking in the area of a school or near a crosswalk, we all know what kids like to do, like to run between the cars and into the roadway. Colony Pool Lot has been paved. I think there would be enough spots to handle the parents. I know we encourage them to go there and park. There is certainly enough room in those parking lots to accommodate the number of parents both before and after school. It still gives the children the opportunity to play in the grass area on either side of the roadway. And I would hope that the parents would understand that this is really for the safety of their children, the safety of the motoring public, and for the safety of the first responders coming and going from the Chatham Emergency Squad. So I propose that we introduce or we agree that the 8 to 4 covers that area. The 8 to 4 I know would limit parking down across from the pool area.
Can you take them in order, do 6 first?
The school,
Stopping or standing?
no stop.
I'm not sure what you're proposing.
No stopping or standing would be from Lafayette Avenue to School Avenue along the pool side, because we want to eliminate parking there.
It says it's repealing what's presently
Yeah.
there and replacing it, so it's, the regulation is still going to be no stopping or standing, the description is changing?
No, on that side of the road, actually, I believe the ordinance says no parking 8 before school days only.
I'm sorry, what does it say?
I believe that area, right now, there's 2 different signs that cover that area, but I believe on the pool side, between Lafayette Avenue and School Avenue on the pool side, I believe there's a restriction for school days.
I'm not talking about parking, so this is repealing, let me read it, section 1, section 7-10 of the revised general ordinance is titled Stopping or Standing Prohibited During Certain Hours on Certain Streets. It's hereby amended to repeal stopping or standing limitations on Spring Street and replace it with the following. Amended as Spring Street East from the intersection of Lafayette Avenue to School Avenue. So what's being replaced? It's no stopping or standing in that Spring Street from Lafayette to the school?
What is the definition?
I'm not sure
Yeah,
I'm not sure how it's written.
I think we were removing the stopping and standing to say just no parking, period, right? Or stopping.
I read the ordinance last night, and let me just make sure the other ordinance.
Chief, wasn't it a definition thing between what's stopping, what's
Yeah, well,
standing, and clarifying it?
The stopping and standing, you know, it wasn't really until these signs on Spring Street came about that I fully understood what stopping or standing means. Stopping means you can't just stop for any reason. Standing means you can stop to let off passengers and let on passengers. And so it says that essentially the stopping means you can't stop and take out groceries and put in groceries, but you can stop and let off passengers and take on passengers. Technically, that's what the parents are doing. They're letting their kids out and they're picking their kids up. And that's where I said that's a really, really difficult ordinance to, you know, to be able to enforce. Because technically they are. They're letting their kids off and they're letting their kids on, okay? So that ordinance, no stopping or standing, runs from, I believe runs from Dale Drive all the way to Lafayette Avenue on the school side. We want to eliminate that. We want to get those cars off the road. On the other side of the street, what I proposed was continue that no parking 8 to 4 on the east side of the street, or the tennis court side, from School Avenue to Dale Drive. So that whole area would be free of any cars in the roadway. From on the east side, on the pool side, from School Avenue to Lafayette Avenue, I think there's 2 or 3 ordinances that cover that area right now. I was trying to simplify that by simply saying no parking or no stopping or standing, plain and simple. So if someone wants to pull up and let their kids off there to go to the pool, they still can do that. And 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, I don't see Spring Street, when school's not in session, becoming a mess with cars with Colony Pool, because now the parking lot's open.
Yeah.
So I think
So the way
I think that cleans up Spring Street. It certainly sends the message. It takes several ordinances, combines them into 2. Somehow we get permission from the gas company to come out.
Still working on
it. Let us drive a sign or 2 into the ground, and the problem's taken care of.
So basically, you understand 2016-06 amends it, and then 2016-07 is the new
Question.
No, I think what the first one does, the stopping and standing, what was intended was currently, there's no stopping or standing, Spring Street, both east and west sides. And so that is being changed and replaced with just the east side. I think that's what the recommendation.
The east side from Lafayette Avenue to School Avenue.
That's right.
And of course, during the school days, these ordinances would impact those residents that live there. But certainly, we'll work with them. That won't become an issue for those people. But in the pictures that someone sent, perhaps it was you, Mayor, you sent the pictures, those cars parked on Spring Street on the east side of the school side go all the way down into those where those homes are on the right side. So, you know, it's great that the parents are utilizing that area as opposed to clogging up Summer Boulevard in the school. But now it's just a matter of getting them off the road. Mm-hmm. We could have very simply amended the ordinance to read both sides, the entire lane, no parking there before. But I wanted to give, you know, the residents an opportunity to park somewhere and do something. So, but it was confusing when I suggested this because there are a number of ordinances and there are some overlapping ordinances where it says no stopping or standing, but no parking 8 to 4 at the same time. And it took a little drawing, a little paperwork to try to figure it all out. And this probably simplifies it with two new ordinances.
Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
From being down there during the school hours, I was struck by the chaos of having parking on both sides of the street. So I can support the idea of really eliminating on both sides of the street in that immediate area by the crosswalk. I think removing it on just one side of the street is only half the problem. But I guess my thought is, do we need to, or have we already, or are the plans already in the works to kind of complement this legal step with anything in that now parking lot area to make it more attractive and more, you know, easy and then also accompany that with some information for the people who are being affected so that they know what we're intending and know what the plus side is. This is the negative side.
Yeah.
You can't park here, but something that really guides them to where we do want them to park.
I know that, for example, today, our babysitter went to pick up Gracie, and she was told when she tried to stand, she couldn't park there. So they're out there already enforcing this. And I think, to your point, in terms of communications, we can certainly alert, you know, the PTO there, put in the bulletin. I'm sure the police will be out there, you know, sometime to ensure that people, it's just breaking a habit, having people understand you got to park now in the Colony parking lot.
There's, you know, any ordinance change, even like this, when we change in life neighborhood, there's always that period of grace period that we're out there on more of an educational crusade as opposed to enforcing the moment that sign goes up. That's not what we do. It's not what we do. So obviously there will be certain learning curves.
Right.
On you know, the moms and the dads who drop their kids off.
But the parking lot itself has been a little bit disjointed because of all the restrictions put on it by the power company, and I know with John Rushke there'd been some conversations about whether with the grant money could we even go and put a walkway into that parking lot so that when we do direct people to park in the parking lot, that now there's not a flow of pedestrians coming out the driveway, right, with the car traffic trying to come in the driveway. So it seems like this is sounds like a good part of the puzzle, but I'm just wondering if there's a missing piece of it here.
Well, you know, that's still contingent on PSE&G with how much they'll allow us to do. So that has to be followed up upon. Yeah, still obviously on the drawing table. They know what we kind of proposed to them, so we do have to follow up.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else?
This is kind of a related subject, the Delwood Road part of it. And I know, Chief, the police were there trying to sort it out the last couple days. Can you just kind of address that for us and where things stand and where we're going on that?
I think that our signage in the township's portion is adequate. I think that we need to just, from a police department standpoint, have more of a presence and perhaps move to the point of enforcement in order to get the message out. As for the borough and the safe routes to school and all that stuff, I don't know what they're looking at or what they're looking to do outside of putting sidewalks on Delwood. I don't know. The tough part about Delwood is it's the motorists, the moms and the dads dropping it. They're the ones that are creating the problem.
Right. Again, I think
again, it's a back road. It's outside of enforcing the township's portion, and that's the difficulty. Is really it's a border road, and the crosswalk is right at the border, and I don't know if we're on the same page as the borough as to how to correct the problem. I don't even think our signs marry their signs. I don't think they mesh. I think they conflict. And I think at one point they have a sign on the other side of the crosswalk on the school side. It's actually on the township side that would lead one to believe that you can do what that sign says up to the next township sign, which technically is true. So it may be an issue of correcting that sign and having more of a presence. But I can't see for a parking issue dedicating an officer or two for an hour or two every day on Delwood Drive.
No, I think, again, it's a matter of education, and I know that the PTO and the Safe Routes folks are working on this as well. It's the education, right, and helping parents understand, convenience over safety is not acceptable, right? So we got to help people understand, the signs are there for a reason, and if it means we just got to start, quote unquote, enforcing or educating people as they've been doing this past week, I think it's a good step.
I think it's an excellent step. I guess.
And when you're not there, you're not there. And again,
right back.
It's not like the parents at Lafayette or at Lafayette School are walking their kids to class. Really, they're pulling up, creating a hazardous situation, dropping the kid off, and then they're gone. So it's one of those quick, I'm only here for a second. We've heard that all the time with stopping and standing, whatever the ordinance is. I'm only here for a second. I was only here for a second. I was only here for a second. I don't think we want to necessarily get into forcing parking tickets for someone who realistically is only there for a second.
Yeah.
Although the afternoon is a whole different ballgame, right? I mean, in the morning, they're just driving in and driving out. In the afternoon, people want to get there early to get a spot closer to the back path, and now you've got them parked on the township side, the borough side, north, south, east, west. So it's a matter of educating as
Spring Street's a relatively new problem.
Right, 'cause the pathway's
Delwood has
relatively
been a
new.
problem for many
That's been there a long
years.
time.
And we need that magical solution. I suggested we make Delwood one way. Just during certain hours a day, and then we don't have that problem, right? So
Kind of.
I
There'll be another
I don't
one,
know.
Zach.
I don't know.
Can of worms.
I'm not, I'm not a traffic safety expert per se, so I'm open for suggestions as you are too. I don't know what the answer is.
But you're satisfied that our signage on Delwood accomplishes what we're trying to accomplish?
It prohibits parking on one side.
And again,
it
a
limits
K
parking on the
turn
other side.
is not an illegal maneuver.
It's a wide roadway, and it certainly supports vehicles on each side and two-way traffic. Right? You've been out there in the morning, so it's certainly a wide enough road to support all of that. But our restriction, if I'm not mistaken, prohibits parking on the school on one of the sides and limits parking on the other side. I don't think that our signage marries the boroughs, and I think that's where the confusion comes in, and that's something we may have to look at.
Yeah, that sounds like confusion we should be able to resolve.
Yeah.
I mean, the chief can't be expected to solve two towns' problems. So, I mean, I think we need to make sure that we're sending a consistent message on signage.
Yeah, again, when you put cars in a roadway, and you put kids in a road, and you have a crosswalk, it's creating an issue. It's always going to create an issue. The right way to correct it is everybody parks on the school side. You allow parking on the school side. You eliminate parking altogether on the other side in both towns, and then you have parking on one side, and you deal with it from there.
But
You know,
Chief,
but you'll always have the parents coming from Longwood,
Yep.
who are just going to want to sit and not turn around, and I understand that's creating the problem, or K-turns and U-turns, and I don't know the answers.
Could you investigate this further and just
Yeah, there's
connect with the borough
I
folks?
walk out there every day.
Good, all right.
You know, perhaps I need to spend some lengthy time out there to actually see it for periods of time in the morning and the afternoon, and come up with a better solution. But we did look at it. We did look at it in the past, and those signs are relatively new. Those ordinances are relatively new.
Is it conceivable that you can meet with the borough officer across the Great Divide there and actually have a conversation at that point?
Well, it's my understanding they have a whole traffic safety committee now in the borough. I was reading, and Safe Routes to School have met with them over at
Right, but
Delaware.
they still have a point man
that
who's
only
on
takes care of
traffic
half the
safety.
problem, because the crosswalk goes straight across. So,
Right.
you know, I guess I can meet with the Safe Routes to School people too and see what they're.
Well, they do have one traffic safety officer on the force. So to have a conversation with him, does that
I will
need to be
have
moderated?
I will have my de facto traffic safety officer speak with their traffic safety officer, open up a dialogue, and see if we can't come to a resolution sooner rather than later.
Good. All right, getting back to the ordinances. Was there any further discussion, or is there a motion to introduce this for?
I'm in favor of introducing it tonight, I don't know.
Introduce it, and that way we can put it on the docket for Feb. 4, I guess?
Yes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
We need to do
We'll-
them
both?
independently?
We'll do them independently.
It's separate, yes.
We'll do the first one is ordinance 2016-06, an ordinance of the Township of Chatham County, Morris State of New Jersey, amending section 7-10 of the revised general ordinances of the township titled Stopping or Standing Prohibited During Certain Hours on Certain Streets on Spring Street. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, I have a motion from Deputy Mayor Sullivan and a second by Committeewoman Swartz. Mr. Gallup?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Swartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
And Mayor Ritter.
Yes. Second ordinance is ordinance 2016-07, an ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending section 7-14 of the revised general ordinances of the township titled Parking Prohibited During Certain Hours on Certain Streets on Spring Street. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Mr. Gallup?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Swartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter.
Yes. At this time, we'll open it up again for the hearing of citizens. If anyone would like to get up right now and offer their comments, please do so.
Hi, good evening. Nancy Tagle, 20 Runnymede. I just wanted to support the ordinance, just speak about the Spring Street a little more. I would like to know or get some clarification from the committee about the parking lots. There are a few parking lots in the back there by the tennis courts, one of which I believe is on township property, and it has nothing to do with the easement the PSE&G has to deal with. And that lot could use some repairs. And if you could answer that question, is that true? That lot is actually the township?
Well, we'd maintain all of them. As far as ownership, there's the lot next to the tennis courts across from the emergency squad. We own that. That has nothing to do with the PSE&G easement. On School Avenue, where the high school students park and where the temporary cell tower is, that's another strip that's actually on our land that we own. And then the ones that are under the high power lines are our lots, but they're on the PSE&G easement.
Right, okay.
But as far as maintenance goes, they're all ours.
Okay. Then I just wanted to ask if you can investigate when people are parking in the lot that has nothing to do with PSE&G, closer to the tennis courts. The curbing also adds, or lack of completed curbing adds to a little bit of the disorganization. So if you have cars parked where there should be curbing, it's unsafe for children and families to be walking through there because you've got cars coming in and out of the driveway, and also in an area that's not meant for a car to be parked, which we could walk along the grass there and get by, but they're in the way.
Sorry, people are parking on the grass, you're saying? And that's-
Yeah, they're parking on the grass where if they were curbing, they probably wouldn't. There's some potholes there. If it's possible to extend or join the two lots, one that's under the lines and with the older one, that would also help because there's gravel there now, and people just tend to avoid the messy gravel as it is. So
That is one of the things we're looking at and trying to get permission from PSE&G to do that.
That's great.
We're looking to create a drive-through lane
Yeah.
that would function much the way the drop-off does at the school.
It would be great if they were joined. It would be great if you took a look specifically at that one lot, that if you can understand what I'm saying when you actually take a closer look, that the curbing or when they are parking there, that's another issue that we come up against when you're bringing your kids. If you're now off the street, off Spring Street with this new ordinance, you're definitely going to be in the lot, and you definitely want to have safe passage from the crosswalk to your car without having to look, in several directions.
If I'm not mistaken, the lot you're speaking of, that's just a gravel surface between Spring Street and the tennis courts, that small area there's largely undefined, and that you kind of go in and park at an angle or wherever you want.
The oldest, what looks like, the oldest one is closest to Dale Drive. Now, with the north, south, east, and west, I'm a little confused, so we're just going to say the one closest to Dale.
Right.
That one has curbing.
Mhm.
Then there's a stretch going to the next newer lot where there's gravel. If that could be paved, great. If
Yeah,
you
that's
can't,
really
let
just a
it go.
driveway, but it does need some repairs.
But if we have clear, rights to the older lot that is existing, that the Belgian block is missing or disrepaired, it would be helpful if it was more delineated so people would park in true parking space.
We can look into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll go out with Rich Young, we'll take a look at and
Thank
see
you.
what repairs need to be made.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else? All right, with that, Greg, you want to read our resolution for the executive session?
Resolution 2016-P-03, resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham in the County of Morris, New Jersey, authorizing conference of the Township Committee with the public excluded. Whereas NJSA 10:4-12 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey as follows. 1. The general public shall be excluded from discussion of the specified subject matter. 2. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. A. Lease negotiations, T-Mobile lease. B. Collective bargaining agreement, Teamsters. 3. It is anticipated that the minutes on the subject matter of the executive session will be made public upon conclusion of the matter under discussion and in any event when appropriate pursuant to NJSA 10:4-7 and 4-13. 4. The committee will come back into regular session and may take further action. 5. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Thank you, and I believe we'll take action tonight, Tom? Yes, okay. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Gallup? Yes. Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes.